Virginia Satir, internationally recognized as a pioneer in family therapy and human relations, dedicated her life to developing and teaching skills to improve relationships in both families and organizations. Her goal was to raise social consciousness about the importance of world peace, individual health, and personal responsibility. This videotape training series demonstrates these goals. Although Virginia died in 1988, her wisdom and spirit live on through her teachings. In 1987, Virginia Satir was videotaped at the Avanta-sponsored Virginia Satir International Summer Institute in Crested Butte, Colorado. In this human learning laboratory, Virginia and her training staff worked for 4 weeks with 90 people around the world. This tape is one of a series which contains specially selected teaching units from the last process community that Virginia taught.
I don't know if some of you know something about me, some of you have read about me, some of you heard it from your mother, I guess. I don't know. But what to me is important is when stars come on in people's eyes. Are you aware that you can't have stars in your eyes unless you have health and good feelings of self-worth? It doesn't happen. There's no stars come on. So behavior for me is not the important piece. It's the stars. And the stars for me are what give me all my goodies. I want to also say something when I tell you that. That's a different measurement than any other I know. I don't know of any clinical tests that measure stars in people's eyes as manifestations of learning something. It's a very simple thing. How many of you already seen it? Your kids, your mother. Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen it in yourself? How many of you seen that? Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. All right. Now here we are. There are 90, I believe, not all 90. Some people got still stranded in the San Francisco airport, but they will be here shortly. And out of the wonderful ones we have here, all of us, and includes the people that we're going to be training and so on, that we put ourselves together in such a way so that we can move more deeply, more broadly, however it is, and I'm not thinking weight-wise, so don't get upset about that. But I believe that we have an opportunity that no people have ever had on life on Earth before this time. We're in the next evolution of humankind. It has never happened before. And that we're at the edges of this. The old order will begin to leave, and the new one take over. And in some ways, we're kind of in a limbo period. We call the new order the New Age stuff. It's probably the same thing that happened in 1887, when people started to think, a car? I think the first one appeared in 1886. And looking at all those new possibilities, you mean we don't have to be on the farm? There's a factory over there? Can you imagine that? Forecast for that. All right. So we're in that same spot going to the next century, which is now only 13 years away. Are you aware of that? All of you will be alive and you'll write the year 2000. We are in an evolution, and what I see is that the period before the next century of 15 years, there's a period of 25 years, more or less, between like 1885 and 1910, 1785 and 1810, and I think it's going to be true now, 1985 and 2010, where the solidification of the new possibilities are going. And the new possibilities are no longer in technology. They're in human service and human evolvement. And it may be the first time in the history of the world, I think it is, that human beings, not black or white or rich or poor, human beings, now we'll look at what they need. Are you aware that we're far behind everything else? Look at all the prejudice, look at all the other stuff. Look at all the ways that people feel they don't like themselves. How many of you have ever had 10 seconds or more of thinking, I'm a shit? Good, okay. Take that out of there, okay. I didn't raise my hand to that. And what was that about? I said to myself, I'm not measuring up to something. And there wasn't anybody around to say, there's nothing to measure up to, love, just you. But I learned that, so that's what I hope you'll learn. So that this wonderful time, which, by the way, when the old ice is breaking up, it cracks. How many of you ever heard ice breaking up like in Alaska? somebody here, it cracks and it makes so much noise. And you think, oh God, I wonder what's going to happen. Old orders always crack and make noise when they're breaking up. Just like you will grunt a little bit when you feel an old order leaving. After all, that's familiar, you know? And when the new one comes, it comes after the cracking. So the wonder for me, and I'm glad I'm living now, that I can be a part of this transition. And you are a part of that. You come here. I think that's what you come for. Maybe you didn't know that. But this is where we are now. We are the leaders of the next evolvement. Not me, not the people just follow me, but the people who see that we now, human beings, can be more than what they ever have been. And that's not going to mean putting anything in anybody. It's only waking up what we got. We're wonderfully endowed. I couldn't do what I do if I didn't know that for sure. So I hope nobody's trying to influence me to the negative, because you'll only have a futile experience. That is, you can't tell me that you're no good. I won't believe it. You can't tell me that you can't. I say, oh, that's very interesting. I will not be sympathetic and say, oh, you poor dear, I know your mother was like that and you're tainted forever. No, not at all. So what I'm saying to you is I'm holding up a mirror of your evolvement in your own particular wonderful way. And when we do that, we can become teachers and students wherever we are. So my excitement is in having you here, being with you, and then I have another one, and that is I have 9 wonderful people who are going to be part of that facilitating process. And the wonderful thing is, you know, every time you give a hug or a kiss, you get one back. That is, if you work it right. And that means that any time I facilitate you, you facilitate in some way. And part to help that all the way through is to begin to comment on what is going on. That doesn't mean judge, it just means comment on what's going on. The freedom to comment. I don't know how it would have been for you, or how it was for you when you were growing up, but for me, there were many things I wasn't supposed to comment on. I wasn't supposed to comment if I saw my father nude. That was terrible. But you know what I did one time? I wanted to really see what he looked like. And he used to wear a nightshirt down to here. I knew that part. And I slept upstairs, and there was a register. Yeah, I don't know if you know what a register is. You've got a hot stove downstairs, and then the heat up. And so I would get down on my hands and knees and look at that register. I'd get up early in the morning to see what I could see. I was very curious. I never got caught. Neither did I find out everything I wanted to know. Anyway, but I tried. So, most of us labor under rules that we have no idea we're under. Most of us haven't even touched the idea of what the beauty and the possibilities are with human beings. Challenge and so on. That's what I hope to have happen. All right, now, I would like now to go to another piece of this. And as a way of getting into and keeping a kind of a way to see how we're all moving with each other, I developed something called the temperature reading. And I want to present that to you. Before I do, I'd just like to share something else. If you're like me, which I assume you are in many ways, although I know assumptions make an ass of you and me sometimes, I'm willing to take that at this moment. And that is when I'm unsure, or when I'm in this what I'm going to call limbo, not quite left there, not quite here, that's a limbo period, okay? In the limbo period, we often lose touch with our ability to make decisions well. We overdrink at those times. We oversex sometimes, and sometimes even with the wrong people. That's a matter of opinion, I guess. Anyway, or we over something or other. Or we overemphasize something to ourselves, like, oh, here it is again, such like. What I want to do is give you a broad kind of foundation in which you need to get. How many of you know that you already know that when you're in this limbo period, you can't quite count on yourself? Let me see. Okay. Now that's a wonderful discovery. That's not bad. It's like knowing when your tire's going out, the air's going out of your tire, soon it'll be flat. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? Just like if I'm in limbo, isn't that a wonderful thing to know? I won't decide who to marry or divorce at this moment. Or I won't decide who I love or who I don't love. You know, that kind of stuff. We'll be seeing more of that because that's part of the change process. So now, to just be in touch with yourself in relation to that. It's a way of knowing. All the bad decisions I've made in my life, I made in a limbo period. And it usually had a feeling like this: oh my God, what's going to happen now? I can't see the future. It's dark, black, whatever. So I better do this now while I got the chance. I don't know. Maybe that I was the only one. Anybody else thought that? So I mean, let's see. Okay, well, a few. The rest of you don't have to tell me. All right. Now, what I'm trying to develop here is the maximum in a learning context. That is a psychological, physical, spiritual, emotional place we can begin to learn. Now, piece of this learning context is to have a device for letting the feelings and the needs to have a source of expression. So the first element in the learning context is a temperature reading. Now I'd like you to think for a moment of a thermometer. You know how thermometers are? They say, you know, some point below is freezing and someplace up here you roast, and then in between there are degrees. They just don't have two, you know, roasting or freezing, but they have the thing in between. And if you look at the thermometer, at least you can gauge a little bit about what kind of clothes you want to wear. Have you noticed that? Inside it's all nice, toasty, warm, and then maybe it measures 30 degrees below zero outside. And so you go by that thermometer. But we all have thermometers of sort. But this is taking a psychological and a social temperature for the group. Now, everything I do as a device has a history to it. I'm the kind of person that I get images about things. I've had lots and lots of experience about something, and then all of a sudden, pictures come out. And this temperature reading came at a time when I was taking people up into the Rockies. We call a place called the Dardanelles. We took up 120 people. We were there for 2 weeks. And these were all families, and they came for treatment reasons. And I didn't have this device then. One day, a little boy killed a chipmunk. He was 10 years old. And I don't know why he killed a chipmunk, but he did. But what happened was little group started over here. Isn't that terrible what that little boy did? And then I heard about some parents saying to other parents, watch for him because he kills some chipmunks. And then I was watching this, and I thought, my God, you know, let's do something about this. So I had a good friend, little 8-year-old kid. You know, those 8-year-olds are wonderful. So are 4, 7, 6, 5, and 10. And so I was aching over this. And she said to me something very interesting. She said, you know, maybe he didn't mean to do it. Well, I thought that was a very good idea because I was caught up in the business about how this little incident was separating this whole group. And then I could see that some parents thought, a little boy kills a chipmunk, then they could kill 16 people down the road. He was only 8. Anyway, so I took my little friend's advice to my head, and I said, there is a whole set of feelings going here. What I'm going to do is bring the whole group together, and I'm going to talk about these feelings. And what happens also to me, certain kinds of forms appear. So the first thing that came in this one, which I reversed, are all the worries and the angers. That's now number 2. But that day, I had to pick up the worries and the angers. And so I just said, a little boy, Joshua over there, killed a chipmunk. And I understand many of you have different reactions to that. So let's talk about him. And so people started to talk. And I said, let's talk about the part that worries you. and angers you. Because I saw that as a divisive kind of thing. And so they talked, and they told me nice. I have the kind of rapport with people that they know it's okay for me to tell me negative things. It doesn't happen right away, but it happens, and it happened then. So as people started to talk about their angers, and I received them, and I found out, helped them to find out how other people were seeing and feeling the same thing, we began to make a connection on the human level. How many of you have been in groups where there's something happened and then you see the polarizations? Let's see. Okay. Now you know what happens when the polarizations happen. You have to be at war. You either have a quiet war, which is resistance, and I don't talk to you, or you have an active war where you try to kill each other. You probably never did that, but you saw it. But that's an old way of going. So as I allowed for the expression, and not only allowed for the expression, but gave it a positive form. If we have a feeling, then we need to find a way to let it become something we can ourselves acknowledge. Do you know how many people get upset because they're angry? How many in this room feel guilty when you're angry? Oh, okay. Do you know why that is? Mostly because when you were little and you looked angry at your mother, she said, "How could you do that to me? Do so much?" And you didn't say it, but you thought, well, I can do that. But anyway, so we have the expressions. Now, I began to realize, and I did even that day, that if we only stick at the level of worries, we can bond at that level of feeling negative and knowing that there are a lot of others that feel that way. But that's only a piece of it. So then I knew that there were appreciations. I put that first now. That day I had it next because I got the worries out so people didn't feel they had to kill each other, and then into the appreciations. Are you aware that how many appreciations which you don't give voice to? How many of you know that? Take it for granted? Let me see. Come on, let's see. Okay, wonderful. Don't be bashful. I just want to check here. I want to always know I'm still in the world. So appreciations. So what do you like about all this? And there's a lot of relief when that happens. But if we have only appreciation without the freedom to express the negatives, we get tied in another way. How many of you have been in places where you know you're only supposed to do right things and good things? Yeah, you know how your stomach aches on that one. All right, these were the two that came up that day. And then I began to think about it. Because what happened as a result of finding out what angered people, what appreciated people, is we found we did not have a way to give out information. So there became then, what is the new information we need? But it came about in the way of puzzles. I didn't know what to do. This happened over here, and that happened over there, and I don't know what that's like. When we come to a new environment, we always have puzzles. There isn't any question. Now, for many people, puzzles, if you're grown up and smart, you don't have any puzzles. You know exactly what to do, don't you? No. Well, of course. Now, don't admit that. I mean, isn't that the expectation for many people? Now, the puzzles give us an opportunity to, it's like any context has as many eyes as it has people in it. There is no one, no matter how smart one, whatever it is, can see everything that's going on. So all the eyes that are going on have a chance to bring in other pieces. That becomes a love gift. So the presence of a puzzle is the comment on some new information. Can you follow that? Like when you were a kid, what would have happened if your parents had the idea that whatever puzzled you, come and tell us about it? And then you could say, well, you know, I looked at my brother's penis and it's got funny stuff on the end. And your mother wouldn't faint. She'd say, well, I don't know how you saw his penis, but let's take a look together. I don't think she did that. But anyway. Now, puzzles, you see, it's easy to talk about a puzzle well, I noticed that went down on the street there, down on that street, and this went over here, and that's a puzzle. It's fairly easy to talk about that. But the puzzles that have to do with our basic self and others, which I hope we'll get to in this room. And that's the place where the risks go on, and it's also the place where we get our best opportunity. You know what you do if you have a puzzle? Many people, I don't know what you do, I'm making this up. If you have a puzzle, and you don't go directly to the person, you go to somebody else and say, I got that puzzle. But a lot of people aren't that kind. They say, this is what happened, isn't that awful? That's what we do with that. I would hope that wouldn't happen here. Now the puzzles lead directly to new information. And ways of having information. For instance, there's going to be new information all the time. There will be puzzles, and there may be some worries and angers and appreciations. It's normal for people to have worries from time to time. Not abnormal. As my brothers used to say, look, Virginia, your face hangs out all the time. And we always have reactions to it. I have a pair of twin brothers that are just younger than me. We used to do a lot of things like this. So just our presence can sometimes make a difficulty for somebody. Have you ever noticed that? It's just that way. All right. Then there are some things where people are reacting in a negative way without knowing it too. So it's normal for us to look at those parts. And it's normal to have puzzles. Who knows everything all the time? I once had a family where there were 10 children in the family. Mother called me up and she said, I have such trouble. I said, what is it? She said, I never know what's going on in this family. So I said, well, I don't know either, but come in and let's see what we figure out. So I made all the dyads, triads, and individuals that were in that family. We had something like 950. And she said, I don't have to worry anymore. Of course there'll be puzzles. She thought she had to know everything. Because as an adult, she should know everything. I said, no, you can't. All you have to do is depend on a good pipeline. All right. New information is coming along all the time because simply we're growing. And that is present. These are then made explicit in a group. And what this does is to help people to know that what was once something that had a negative tag to it is a normal thing. What we need to do is to bring it out. Now the last one were hopes and wishes. And there are two classes of those. One is for now, and the other one is for later. And later can be 10 minutes or 15 or a year. So we have those things. So this is what the temperature reading is, and it is one of the devices in developing a learning context. And what I hope it will do for you is to let you know, because these are normal things, therefore you can have more freedom to comment on them. And not only that, but that your commenting expands my knowledge and everybody else's knowledge of the group. I want to take a minute or two at this moment and just find out from you what's happening for you right now.
And I'm interested, I didn't know you were going to come back right to the temperature reading, but that boy and the chipmunk, and I really understood puzzles and complaints and recommendations. And I didn't understand as much about new information or appreciations. And so I was hoping maybe I would understand more with a continuation of that story, because I'm dying to find out what that whole group of people...
Oh, all right, I'll tell you. Thank you, I'll tell you. That's very good. Sometimes I start at beginnings, and if there wasn't time to comment, some of you would let me get by with that. And you didn't. Well, what happened was, as this... Come over here, Sean, because you're not very good at being seen through. Neither either.
That's true.
What happened was, as we went into all this, the empathy and the identification with this little boy who began to talk about how he felt outside. He came there with a father who was very rejecting of him, and a mother who was trying to push the father to do something with him. And I didn't know that as clearly as I began to know it. As the people began to identify and began to let the evil idea go, you know how we do that? It's the image of the negative. And as they talked, they let that go. And pretty soon, the father, who was sitting way over there, at a certain point came up behind his son, and he said, I'm not going to let you be critical toward him anymore. And that was a turning point for the father and the son. in relation to that. But what also happened is that everybody got a really high dose of something that's going on right now all the time, of projecting their own dark side onto somebody else. And we were able to do that in a loving way. So that the healing that came about with that was really tremendous. I'm glad you asked that question. And I was very grateful because, once you put an evil out there, we're doing that, with Russia at this point in time. And we do that by putting our negative image up. It's in the family. How many of you have ever lived in families where people were behaving as though the other people were kind of evil or bad? Let's see that. All right. Now, you can't do that unless you also know that in yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't notice it. And so there's nothing wrong with that, except why put it out there when we can identify it here? And that's what happened, and everybody ended up hugging each other. But it took me about 3 hours to do that. Because everything I asked people to do was contrary to what they had done. If something does something bad, they should be punished, shouldn't they? So they won't repeat it. And if it's negative, everybody should behave negatively. Look what we do in our prisons. You do awful things, so now the way we're going to heal you is by treating you miserably. So we have that funny business. Everything that came out of that, from the standpoint of the society that was going at that time, was negative. I was going against the tide. But I do that all the time now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, one other thing. What came up was one of the things that happened to this little boy is that the muskrat came close to him and he was afraid. And he did this. Nobody ever thought of that. They only thought if you kill a muskrat, it has to be a premeditated act. Now, sometimes I think that happens when these hunters go out and shoot 10 deer and leave them lay or take their horns. I don't know there's much difference. But anyway, with this little boy, he had killed this muskrat in a fit of fear.
And that was new information.
That was absolutely new information. That's right. And then everybody could identify with the idea, in fear, I do things that I'm not proud of afterward. Any of you had that experience beside me? Yeah. Because in that state, we can't see or hear very well. So anyway, thank you for that, Sean. And we're setting a model here. Now, I want to show you something. Always, whoever's the leader of the group, and in this case, it's me, one of the things that the participants find out, if practice really follows what I say. And if I say, the freedom to comment is welcome. Now, let me tell you how I could have really screwed that one. Sean came up here and he said, you didn't tell her. I said it wasn't time, so wait. How many of you would still believe me? You wouldn't. It's like the mother who says to her adolescent girl, tell me, dear, confide in me. You can trust mother. You're not a girl, but anyway. I just wanted you to know I knew that. And you tell. And then the mother says, I don't know why you did that. I brought you up better than that. What happens to the confidence? See, and that's one of those funny businesses that goes on all the time. How can you let somebody know of your scare or your different idea without putting them down? So thank you for that. Now, what I started out with was to develop a learning context. A context in which we are free to take risks, to go to new places. That's what learning is. And I presented one of what I consider a basic vehicle for making that possible. To look at these things and have a way of being able to comment on them. There is one thing that didn't get stated by me this morning, but it was stated by somebody else. All complaints, which is where this is as well, they of course originate with a person, and that person is the best one to say what the recommendations for change would be. So complaints are accompanied with recommendations for change, because you're the best source of that. And then there's another thing. This is a practice taking charge of yourself, because if you come to me and tell me something's wrong and the message is you take care of it, you're doing two things. You're robbing yourself of the opportunity to be the specialist on your own change, and you are giving yourself a chance to be dependent, and the other one is giving themselves a chance to take care of you. But neither of those are so helpful. So that was that part of it. This will go through in some form every morning, and also we will work toward this being something that isn't going to take a long time. However, at the beginning, this is new for many people, and so we take the time that we need to. Actually, I think that this vehicle is a way of helping people bond, because it says that all of these are normal things. So if you come up with a complaint or an appreciation or a hope or a puzzle, you're only showing your humanness, not how you should have done it differently. So that is one of the pieces of the learning context. And I will be developing more, because to the degree that we can develop a learning context, we'll be free to give support to taking the risks we need to take to learn.
Avanta, the Virginia Satir Network, founded in 1977, is a nonprofit educational organization. Membership is worldwide, representing a variety of professions. Avanta sponsors workshops, advanced training programs, international summer institutes, and conferences dedicated to guiding people of the world to become more fully human.